What's going on, everybody? It's Jay Coffee Talk. Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell if you have not already done so. We talk it all on this channel: music, news, sports, much more. I got an interesting video for you guys, but before I get into this video, I'm having some issues with YouTube and stuff like that. I'm not going to get all into it, but I really need you guys that mess with my channel. And the ones who do, I appreciate you guys so much. I see you guys in there interacting, commenting on the videos. I need you to go to the link that's pinned in the comments for the Coffee Talk podcast channel and subscribe there. I've mentioned this in the past, but I really got to start pushing that channel heavy, you guys. So please subscribe to that channel, hit the bell. We're going to start getting a lot of content over there. But let's get right into this video I got, guys. This is interesting. It's gonna be cool, guys. With 6ix9ine going on, and you know he's in the news on the regular. Like I said, I don't really like to cover that 6ix9ine stuff. You know, we just seen he's saying he isn't going to witness protection now. He'll just work with security. And I personally think 6ix9ine, I don't know if someone will end up getting at him or not, but I think he's going to be able to make money in entertainment one way or another. But I'm not going to talk too much about that. But what I decided to do is this is going to be like a series. I'm going to do more than one of these videos. Bear with me too, guys. I don't have my mic right now. I left it in the whip, the other whip that wifey's got at work. But I decided that I'm going to bring this little series together about famous people who told, snitches, rats, whatever you guys want to call them. There's a million different names. You could give them: stool pigeons, whatever. We're going to look at a few different famous snitches and, you know, what happened with them. Just take a look at it all from, you know, the time that they were active, before they told, to when they told, to after they told, to how it all went for them. And so this is part 1 of the famous Snitches series by Jay Coffee Talk. And we're looking at Henry Hill, you know, who's maybe, let me know what you guys think. Is he the most famous snitch ever? As we know, the movie Goodfellas was based on him. And, you know, a book that he did talking about his life. And I tell you, man, this dude, it's a little different than with 6ix9ine. There's some funny, kind of weird stuff about this guy we're going to talk about, you know, that we weren't aware of till later on. But what's different with him is when he was active, when he was out there, like we know Takashi 6ix9ine, it was a relationship, like I brought up many times, that it was friendly extortion for the 9 Trey gangsters, Treyway, the Bloods. You know, they were getting bread. 6ix9ine was getting that cosign for his rap image, so he could, and protection too, so he could go run around, troll people, tell people suck my, and all that other stuff that 6ix9ine did. Henry Hill was actually considered a stand-up guy, and you know, was not known to be a punk or a rat or anything like that for the majority, you know, of his life. Well, I don't know about the majority of his life. I don't know. But when he was out there in the streets, rocking with the mob, Henry Hill was official. You know, as we know, the mob did not play around. They went to great lengths to protect themselves. You know, if they thought you were a snitch, they wouldn't fuck with you, or they would just kill you. You know what I mean? But let's take a look at Henry Hill. First, you know, just some things I'm going to mention about him. Like we said, Goodfellas, you know, was inspired by his life in a book that he made when he wasn't, you know, worked on it when he was incarcerated and everything like that. And, you know, the Lufthansa heist, which is, you know, showed in the movie Goodfellas, netted $5.8 million. And this was back in the 70s, guys. In 78, you know, they estimated to be 20 plus million by today's standards. And they also had Boston College, you know, because the mob heavily was, you know, in loan sharking, gambling, and things like that. They had players out there shaving points, not necessarily throwing games, but doing things to, with point spreads and stuff like that. And Henry Hill even claimed that he had an NBA ref in his pocket who had a big debt horse rate, like gambling on horses. So they had him in his pocket, you know what I mean? But let's look back on his life. Those are just some of the highlights, but what he did. But let's look back at his life. You know what I'm saying? He died in 2012 at around 69 years old. He was active in the mob or with the mob. He was not actually a member from 1955 to 80. And when he did flip and snitch, based off his testimony, they were able to convict 50 people. And we know two of the main dudes, the heavy hitters that he was aligned with, was Jimmy the Gent, Jimmy Burke, which is who De Niro played in Goodfellas, and Paul Vario. Remember Paulie in Goodfellas, who's in a lot of other mob films, man. You hear people talk about people getting typecasted, how like you'll see a lot of black dudes who are like in The Wire and other films of that nature, like, drug dealing type films and stuff like that. And then I hear people say that a lot of like the Mexican like SA type characters that are in a lot of those kind of films, they use the same guys. For the mob films, all the different mob films and The Sopranos and Goodfellas, they use all the same people, If you look, it's like almost everyone who was in Goodfellas was in The Sopranos, Like, I swear, man, like at some point, even if they weren't a main character, you know what I mean? Even if it was just here and there. But anyways, those were two of the heavy hitters that he was aligned with. So his father was an Irish electrician, immigrant, straight from Ireland back in the day. They didn't look too high on the Irish. And his mom, Carm, was full-blooded Sicilian from Sicily. And, I never knew this. Henry Hill grew up in Brownsville, East New York, which we know is the hood. That's just, I never knew he lived there. So anyways, when he was 11 years old, some of this stuff you see in Goodfellas, as you guys know with movies, man, it's like they can only show so much, time constrictions, they got to dive deeper into certain things than other things, what they really want to get across through the film. But when he was 11 years old is when he, just through living in the neighborhood, got aligned with Paulie and got a job. Paulie had a cab stand, a shoe shine, and a pizza parlor, which you did see in the movie. And he started, running errands and helping out around the shop and everything like that for Paulie at a young age, which you seen in the movie. His mom liked that first. His dad did not like at all because he was cutting school and all that. He didn't see the need to work, you know what I mean, in school. Like, he was like, I can just do this and run with these guys. You know what I mean? These guys is who I want to be like. They say that right in Goodfellas. I believe like one of the opening lines, he says something along the lines of, as far back as I can remember, I wanted to be a gangster, So anyways, when he's 13, though, is when he, gets acquainted with Jimmy the Gent, De Niro's character. And I believe they had like a card game going or something where Paulie brought him to kind of be like the bartender and bring people sandwiches and, you know what I mean? Just like serve people basically. And he really was impressed that Jimmy had a lot of money. He tipped everyone, which you did see that in the movie. At 14 years old, listen, this is at 14. He gets a job, which the mob had, running their union. They had a bricklayers union that was getting a lot of the work. And at 14, he got a job, a no-show job, which for those who don't know is like when they get their union that they're aligned with and running gets a job, they bid on a job and they get it. There's a lot of guys that get no-show jobs where they just have a title, a position, they don't show up, or they just show up and chill, you know what I mean, sit in office, for purposes that if someone was surveilling them, they could try to say, yeah, no, we really work there, but really they're not doing nothing but collecting money. But in that job, he was making $190 a week at 14 years old, and this is way, way back, you know what I mean? I believe this Yeah, 11 years old or so, 14 years old, was the late 60s. So $1.90 a week was a big deal back then. They're saying that's more like 1,700 a week now. But of course, he had to kick some of that up to Paulie and everyone else. You know what I mean? But he was also doing a lot of taking bets, being a bookie and things like that, loan sharking and stuff like that. But one of the scenes that you've seen in the film was when he really started getting active. If you remember, there's a part where he's burning down, he sets some cars on fire. And what happened was, as you might have heard me say a few minutes ago, Paulie owned a cab stand. He had a cab company going. There was a rival company that was some guy that came from Alabama. Some Southerners came up to New York and tried to open a cab business to compete with Paulie's. And, they had young Henry go burn it down. And, after that, they probably sent word over to these guys, hey, that's just the beginning. Get up out of town if you don't want it to get any worse. So anyways, his first arrest, this is where, like we said, at this point, he's probably like 15, 16 years old or something like that, 14, 15. And he's been working with these guys, like we said, bartending at the poker games, working at the pizzeria, doing other stuff. They got him the union job. He's kicking money up to them. He's taking bets. He got his own bookie thing going. But when he pulled that little go burn down the cab stand job and everything like that. But he hasn't really been tested like that, right? So this is when they really started respecting him. They messed this up in the movie. This is one of the things that was a little inaccurate. In the movie, you remember him and Joe Pesci's character, who's in real life, his name was Tommy DeSimone, I believe. I don't know if they call him Tommy Two Guns or something like that, but you've seen in the movie, he was like, De Niro's guy, Jimmy the Burke, Jimmy the Gents. He was his like young soldier. So through, working with him, when he met Jimmy the Gent, that they became kind of like a little crew, Henry and Tommy. So what happened was they went to buy some snow tires. In the movie, they show that they're selling cigarettes. That's not really, they probably did sell cigarettes, but that's not where the arrest happened. You know what I mean? What happened was they went and bought some snow tires for a car with a stolen credit card they had. They got picked up, they got arrested. And they, back then it was different times. This still happens today, just not as much. They beat the hell out of this guy in the interrogation because they knew, hey, this is like a 15-year-old kid. He's running with the mob. We'll slap the shit out of him. We'll come down hard on him. He'll roll over. We can put him back out there and have him working for us, snitching. And he didn't give up anything. He didn't even really give up his name. Because if you recall in the movie, there's some parts where he says, the only thing you ever had on me was my rap sheet and a social security card or something like that. You know what I mean? They didn't even know his name. He didn't want to tell him his name. And that's all they got out of him was his name and nothing else. So after this, they knew they could really trust Henry. And Paulie and Jimmy had guys in their pocket in the police. You know what I mean? So they reported back to him like, listen, this kid can stand up to the heat. This guy's good to go. This guy's solid. Now, that's what I'm saying is this guy was Henry the Hill was a for real, he like 6'9", was like a bozo, and we knew all this. Henry Hill really was like a gangster. You know what I mean? Like I said, the mob is not just co-signing someone on no BS. Now, as we know, and he said in the film, he could never be a made man. You know what I mean? Because his father was from Ireland. Like, I think he says something in the film, like, it doesn't matter that my mother was straight from Sicily, that you could trace her roots all the way back to the old world. My father was Irish, so to them, I was just a freaking Mick. You know what I mean? Like they said, in one part I remember in the film, there's somewhere and he's like, get the Irish hooligans some drinks down there for the hooligans. Their rules were very strict like that. Your blood had to be pure of Sicilian descent, so he could never be a made man. But he was as good as you could be as far as like affiliated without actually being a made man. That's what I'm really trying to get across here, is that this guy was no bozo, So anyways, he continues to do what he's doing, gambling, running different other little hustles and stuff they had going. But at 17, he decides to join the Army. So he's in the Army for 3 years. And when he's in the Army, he's down there in, I believe, stationed in like North Carolina. And he's really, really hustling hard in the Army, within the Army, selling untaxed cigarettes. As you know, if you have commissary for people who may have been in the military on base, you know, with your military ID, you can get things, I believe, untaxed and for really low prices. So he was using that to, you know, to ship cigarettes out. He had loan sharking going on within the military to other people who might have needed money. He was taking bets. He, I believe, you know, had some other stuff going like that, but he was gone for like 3 years. He comes back when he's 20 years old, and he spent a little bit of military time. The word is he went into a bar and scrapped it out with a whole bunch of Marines. And I have family who are in the Marine Corps, and I have a lot of family who are in the Army. I got family who are in the Air Force and all that. And, you know, for those people out there who may hear this video who, you know, are in the military or who have family who know that the Marine Corps just hold themselves to, I guess, it's a very prestigious thing. So that's what I'm saying is he was drinking in a bar with some, you know, and I guess there was some Marine guys there. They had some drinks. It got physical, and he scrapped it out with a whole bar of military dudes. You know, that's what I keep trying to get across by this. You know, Henry Hill was not known as a murderer or anything, but he was just never known as a punk, is what I keep trying to explain to you guys. Now, he says a lot, you know, through his books, through interviews he's done and everything like that. He really was, bottom line, intimidated by these guys like Jimmy the Gent and Tommy and you know, other people that he dealt with, because these dudes had a lot of bodies under their belt. You know what I mean? And for all we know, he has never killed anyone, but there's times he says he has. I don't know. We'll talk a little bit more about that, about when Henry gets a little older. But he comes back from the military. He's done. And this is when things really heat up. They pull off that Air France robbery, which is portrayed in the movie. And Henry was really smart here. They got $420K altogether. But other dudes wanted to go up in there, you know what I'm saying, pistols out, just wilding out, and he felt that's too aggressive, that'll never work. He decided that he could get a key. So what he did, through different tips he had and stuff like that, he got acquainted with the security guard. He knew the guy was the type of dude who liked the, you know, women. He took him out, got him drunk, hooked him up with a hooker, snuck the keys, went and had a copy made, brought the key back. The guy never knew it was copied. They went in, they pull off this heist, $420K. They kick some up the ladder like they're supposed to. And we also know about the Lufthansa heist, like I just said, $5.8 million, which still to this day, I remember seeing something a few years ago, you know, that they made an arrest. I want to say in like 2013 or so, 2014, they made an arrest after all these years in the Lufthansa heist. But they haven't figured it all out. You know what I mean? A lot of that is just what we see in movies and documentaries and stuff like that is pieced together off the information that has been given up about it. You know what I mean? So anyways, he comes back. He pulls off these different heists. He opens a restaurant, which I guess he wanted to just take in a legit route and kind of get away from the life, but it didn't work out that way. You know what I mean? Before he knew it, all the old gangster friends he had were hanging out at his restaurant. And, you know, we seen it in the movie a lot when he had his place, all the stuff that happened. And, you know, that's not what he wanted. He wanted to kind of get out of the life. I've heard him speak about this in a lot of different interviews and stuff. So it seems he was really thinking heavily back during that time, like, I got to change this, you know what I mean? So anyways, that's where the whole Billy Bats thing happens, which we seen in the movie. You know the famous line, go get your shine box. Hey, he said, if I wanted to bust your balls, I'd tell you go get your shine box. He said, yo, I don't know, Billy. I don't know if they don't come up there and tell you, but I don't shine shoes anymore. You know what I mean? And it really went down like that. That's really how that happened, was just between an argument through Tommy and Billy Bats. And as you know in the movie, Billy Bats was a made guy. That was a no-no. And, they ended up taking out and killing him. But also, Henry Hill states that Billy Bats was a major loan shark dude who had just went away. He comes back home. Tommy and Jimmy had, got in on his action, his territory and everything with the loan sharking. So he kind of felt like, they were happy to kill him. I don't know that they plotted on it, but they were happy to, because then they didn't have to split this with him. You know what I mean? But it was crazy. So anyways, then you get down to the whole thing that happened in Tampa, where they holding that guy over to the Lions or whatever, and he gets 10 years for extortion. And this is where things really got out of hand for Henry Hill. While he's in prison, he meets those Pittsburgh guys. Remember, he's like, I got my Pittsburgh people in Pittsburgh. They got this cocaine thing going. And they get it. He gets in this, while in prison, he becomes really cool with this guy from Pittsburgh. And he starts running H, coke, weed, Quaaludes, and all that stuff. And, I guess he paid his way into this. The guy told him, hey, if you can raise this cash and get it to me, I will teach you the whole deal, how to get it in the prison. I'll put you on. And Henry Hill was able to come up with the money. And you remember, this is where things got tricky for him, because the mob did not look too kindly on drug dealing. They didn't want it. Now, there's a lot of different speculation. People have said, like there's some kind of code behind it or anything like that. But from what I gather, a lot of people say it doesn't have anything to do with that, they believe they're above selling drugs or anything like that. It's the sentences that came along with it, as we know, you catch a federal drug rap, is crazy. And, the bosses and different things like that within the mob, because, they were always being looked at like what we seen happen with Treyway, with RICO charges and stuff like that. They didn't want drugs getting, it was an easy way for them to get knocked. They felt like it wasn't worth the risk. So Henry, selling this coke and everything, brings it home, and still, after his 10-year stretch was up, continued to sell the drugs. And, he brought Jimmy in on it, but he had to hide it from Paulie, which we seen in the movie. And like I said, that's kind of where it all got out of control for him, because a mule that was within the operation flipped, got caught unbeknownst to Henry, tells on Henry. And then, that whole thing happens, which happens in the movie, the scene where he's riding around, almost gets in a car accident. He's calling home, hey, tell my brother to stir the sauce. You know what I mean? He's like, I had the veal, the pork butt, and all this going and that. You know what I mean? And but that's what ended up happening, was a mule told on him, got caught. They brought him in. The mule flipped. No one ever found out about it. So they were under constant surveillance after that. So it was a wrap. So anyways, he gets arrested. He's not trying to tell. Henry Hill does not want to tell. He's telling the police to fuck off. Like I said, still known as a solid dude. But he's worried. He's worried because Jimmy, the gent, he's calling home to his wife. His wife's saying, yo, Jimmy's wife keeps calling me and asking when you're going to be home. And, he's worried because now Paulie is finding out about the drug charges, which ultimately we seen Paulie had to turn his back on Henry, which they did portray that in the movie. And, he does bail out. That's when he's starting to go meet with Jimmy. And this is the crazy thing. This is what I really want to talk about. What do you guys think about this? As I constantly state on my channel, I am no gangster or anything like that. Just because I report on a lot of this stuff, I'm not. I'm a square, guys. I dibbled and dabbled in the streets growing up, but the street life is not for me. Now, Henry Hill, as I said, was not trying to cooperate. He literally told the feds and the police and everyone, hey, go fuck yourself. But Jimmy's on his ass. He knows it. They're trying to get him to go do this hit down in Florida. And like he said in the movie, he knew he would never return. They never really expected him to hit people. Now, all of a sudden, right after he catches this rap and he's worried that everyone's trying to get him. He's scared. He's paranoid. He's tweaking. He don't know what to do. They want him to go down to Florida and pull off a hit with Jimmy. Come on, you know, he knew what time it was. And in the movie, they show that scene where they tried to get Henry's wife to go into that little like storefront that Jimmy had. From all that I gathered, that did not actually happen. They kind of embellished on that. Henry went with his wife to meet Jimmy at his storefront. What really happened was he was trying to get him to meet him somewhere else, and he said, "No, I'll meet you here," which he was supposed to meet him at like a grocery store or something. Henry believed there was a shooter, you know, posted up somewhere that was going to get him. So he popped up on Jimmy to talk to him at his own spot. You know what I mean? But in the movie, they portrayed it differently, that he got his wife and, you know, was trying to take an attempt on Henry's wife. But nonetheless, he doesn't know what to do. He wants to fight the case, and he's trying to stay out on the streets to make money. But, you know, they're coming, they're going to kill him, and he knows it, bottom line. And the final straw was when the prosecutors played a tape. Same thing kind of with 6ix9ine. They played a tape where Jimmy and Paulie were talking about, listen, we got to clip Henry. We don't really want to do it, but we don't know. We think he's going to tell. Paulie's mad, you know, that he was selling the drugs. He's got to go. So he decided to cooperate. So I want to hear what a lot of you guys think about that, because that's something that I always bring up whenever I talked about this whole Goodfellas situation, was that it was like Henry Hill had no choice, kind of, right? I mean, or just die. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think. But he was holding it down at first. He wasn't trying to tell. So anyways, this is where things get crazy for Henry Hill. He flips, he tells. Like I said, they get 50 convictions. Paulie ends up getting convicted on multiple things. One, like altogether, he gets hit with 14 years. He dies in prison. Jimmy the Gent, Robert De Niro's character, who I keep bringing up, he ends up getting like 10 years on one thing, multiple convictions. He gets life on another. He dies of respiratory illness in prison. And Henry Hill goes to witness protection. And he's a problematic person in witness protection. He's in Omaha. They have to move him to Kentucky. So they have to move him somewhere out in the sticks in Washington State. Then they move him into Seattle to get him more of a city feel. And then one last stop in Sarasota. And he's just constantly problematic. He was arrested multiple times. The feds were telling him, listen, man, you got to chill out with this. We're going to have to kick you out. You know, but in the end, it doesn't work out. You know, they decide they got to kick him out. Henry's wife decides to leave him. And Henry Hill gets caught up in another drug beef. Now, what happened was he was doing a lot of drugs. And that's something I didn't really speak about this so much so far up to this point on this video. Throughout his drug dealing days and stuff like that, he got heavy into using drugs. Heroin, pills, uppers, downers, Quaaludes, coke, all that stuff. He was using heavy, and they did show that in the movie. When he got moved to witness protection, he got strung out so much, because something that really messed with this guy, and I've heard a lot of different people who knew him say this, was that it killed him that he ended up being a rat in the end. So he got really heavy after being into this witness protection, into drinking and using drugs and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Where he was telling on himself to people who he was. He'd get all fucked up and start talking about who he was, and he couldn't sleep at night. It messed with him mentally to have to leave that life behind and have to ultimately become a snitch, you know, something that he was brought up to despise, you know? So he gets in, one of these places that he's in witness protection. He gets in debt with drugs with these guys, and he works out a deal that he's going to help him hit this major lick, you know, move a bunch of coke, to pay off his debt. Well, what ends up happening is the deal that he sets up, he realizes that the guys are the feds, or they're snitching, that it's no good, and he tells them that. So when the deal was about to go down, he said, listen, we can't do this. We're not doing this. Well, and they didn't. But the guys went back another time, made the deal, and Henry still got arrested in the conspiracy, you know, for originally talking to those guys. So He ends up in prison, with a contract on his head by the mob. This is in the 80s and everything like that when he's in witness protection. And, like I said, this guy helped put away 50 people with his convictions. They want his head. But he's just a sitting duck. There's nothing that can be done. So he bumps into another guy that he knew from that lifetime. And the guy just says, yo, everyone wants to meet you we want to meet you in the yard. We want to meet you in the yard. And he's like, I'm dead. And he ultimately comes to peace with it and says, you know what, they're going to kill me. Fuck it, man. Fuck it. It's over. I had a good run. It is what it is. I told they're going to get me. I'm back in prison. Like, what do you think? What did I think was going to happen? Well, he didn't know that guy had did some cooperating too and had alerted the feds. Yo, do you know that that's Henry Hill? He's wanted by the mob. Like, there's a major contract on his head because he's still in prison under that other alias, So they go meet at the yard, and he tells them, hey, listen, man, I did some telling too. I alerted this guard. I know they're going to do something about it. They move him to rehab, and in rehab is where he ended up meeting with Scorsese, sold the rights to his book, which you'll see an image of it popping up on the screen, called Wise Guy by this guy, Nicholas Pileggi. And, that book became the basis for Goodfellas. They changed the name because there was a show called Wise Guy, so they didn't want any confusion off it. And Henry Hill is one of the last that I believe he profited off that deal, because there is a law now that if you go to prison, you're not allowed to profit. Like, you can't write a book or make any kind of content out of the crimes that you did and profit off it. You know what I mean? So I believe he's one of the last before that law was implemented or whatever. I don't know. I'm not positive on that, guys. Don't bite my freaking head off. But, he makes that deal with Scorsese. He gets cleaned up a little bit in prison. Goodfellas comes out. And, the rest is kind of history with that. Now, this is where it gets kind of crazy with Henry Hill, okay? He starts growing old. He's still alive. That's what's kind of nuts, man. This guy ended up, he did all this telling, and they never got him. And that's kind of something that I was talking about with 6ix9ine is maybe 6ix9ine won't get touched because Henry Hill never got touched. I mean, a lot of those guys died off, and the mob lost the juice and power that they had through incarceration and people getting old and dying and stuff like that. Like, from what I know, I don't know. Ultimately, the mob is a secret society, so we don't know. But it's just interesting to see that he never was killed. They never could cash in on it, And from that point on, Henry Hill, we flash forward now, we're in the 90s. He starts going on Howard Stern and being a regular guest. He's making these paintings. He's got this pasta sauce called Sunday Gravy. He's on the show a lot, but it's sad, man. It's really sad. If you go back and watch any of that stuff of Henry Hill when he was on Goodfellas, he's nothing but a lush drunk. Still, he just would go on there and babble on all the time and just get all saucy and wasted. And you just see that it ate him alive, that he was the rat, that he became a rat and everything like that. Now, like I said, he had that sauce, Sunday Gravy. Some interesting highlights for those who've seen him on Howard Stern. Spider, who you remember was the dude in the movie, portrayed by Michael Imperioli, who played Christopher on The Sopranos, who you remember he was the bartender, and he was like, Tommy, go fuck yourself. Why don't you go fuck yourself, Tommy? And he gets shot when they're shooting cards. And then De Niro's like, you fucking asshole, you killed him. You dig the hole and all that. That dude's sister called into the show and was like, hey, the way that you made my brother look in the movie was despicable. You made him look like a babbling idiot. That is not how my brother was. You know what I mean? You jerk and everything like that. And she wanted to know where he was buried because I guess his body was moved multiple times. You know what I mean? So we don't know where he ended up being buried. And there's some different things, too, about Henry Hill. I had to bring them up. It seems that he might have been gay or bisexual, which they never showed in the movie. You know what I mean? In the movie, they made Henry Hill look like the smoothest, playerist, you know what I'm saying, fly dude, you know what I'm saying? But in real life, as we know, he had a heavy drug problem, which there was nothing glamorous about it, like they made it look in Goodfellas. And, you know, there was a lot of people coming out and saying that he was an undercover homosexual, and he didn't exactly deny it. One of those guys from the Pittsburgh connection, they ended up kind of talking to them on Stern, and he said some kind of funny stuff about Henry Hill. But listen, it gets a little worse. You know, as we're talking now, this guy's an old man, you know what I mean? And he did have a girlfriend and everything like that, but he lost his family before. So like we said, he's lost, he's killing himself, he can't live with himself, he hates himself because, you know, he became a rat. He ultimately escaped being murdered, which is amazing. It really just shocks me that that guy was never killed. You know what I mean? And, you know, like I said, though, he lost his family, too. So he's just drinking himself to death, you know, drugging himself to death. He got arrested a couple times in his old age, you know, busted with intravenous needles and things like that and everything. And he had a girlfriend who was kind of more like a mother to him almost, I guess it seemed like. From what I gather, it seemed like she had to keep him in line and look out for him so that he didn't, you know, go get lost or drink, you know, get drunk and wander off and get hit by a car. Like, the dude was a real mess. For any of you guys who've seen it, you know, the footage of him on there and everything. Like, if you look at any of the documentaries that he was on, they did a good job. They must have told him, listen, man, don't come in here all saucy or you're not going to get this check, because Stern seemed to be a little more him just in his natural habitat, being himself, and he was always a mess. Or when he was on the phone, he was always a mess, you know what I mean? But this is what happened, I believe, sometime in the early 2000s, between 2000 to 2010, or maybe right around 2010. Two guys knew who Henry Hill was, right? They figured out who he was. And he was in a bar. And what happened was they abducted this dude. It's very sick what happened to him. They abducted him and violated him sexually. Took him out in the woods, I guess, drugged him, and, you know, raped him with like some kind of strap-on dildo or something disgusting like that, and filmed it and tried to sell it to Larry Flint, the dude that owned Hustler. Now, this is disgusting. You know, on this channel, I always bring up sex offenders are the lowest of the low. I don't even look at them as people. They're evil. They're demons. They're pieces of shit. They're disgusting to me. You know, and these dudes are no, you know, nothing outside of that. They're pieces of shit, too. They thought they could cap off like, oh, we'll go violate this guy. He's a rat and everything like that. And, you know, I believe Larry Flint told them to fuck off. So these dudes were some weirdos. But I guess that tape leaked out of this guy's manhood being took. So it was just kind of sad, man. All in all, like I said, when you seen him on Stern, that he was always such a drunk lush. Then next thing you know, this guy who was once, you know, a gangster, ran with some of the biggest gangsters ever. He ends up being raped and violated. Like, it was all kind of crazy, you know. And then he died. What was that? 2013. And you know, people that spoke about it just kind of said, listen, the guy was a troubled guy, and you know, he's resting in peace now, because like we said, his life never got back in order after he never was able to like start a new life and do well. He hated himself. He couldn't stay clean. They never killed him. They never cashed in on that contract, which blows my mind still to this day. Like I said, this guy went to prison as a rat. No one got at him. He got out. They never tracked him down and killed him. He started doing TV appearances. He had a restaurant. He's selling pasta sauce. He's doing little art shows and stuff like that. I didn't think too much of his art. You guys can tell me what you think. But nothing never happened to this dude. So it's just kind of crazy to think, you know, that this guy they didn't kill him, but he basically killed himself because he was never able to, do anything good with his life or get his life in order. He just kind of, you know what I mean? He just kind of was a mess for the rest of his life. And I personally think, like I said, it's because he hated what he had to do to stay alive, and that was snitch. So you look at someone like Takashi 6ix9ine, and you think, man, this is two different things. Like I said, this dude actually put in work. He earned his stripes. He never was a made man, as we know, because he was Irish. But I'm saying, he was what he was. Takashi 6ix9ine was just some bozo who was getting friendly extorted. And I don't know, that's what it is. But we'll have to wait and see what happens, with 6ix9ine. I don't know. Like, what do you guys think? Do you guys think it'll be the same thing, that they'll never get at him? Because, I don't know, Treyway, are they, I don't believe that they were as strong as the mob, but I don't know. Maybe they'll get at him, maybe they won't, but I'm going to close this video out. I look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments. Let me know if you guys are interested in this famous Snitches series that I'm putting out. Please go subscribe to that Coffee Talk podcast channel, guys. We got to get that thing going. Like I said, there's some stuff going on with YouTube that is just a mess right now. And that's all I got, guys. It's Jay Coffee Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, too. Hit the bell. You also may notice a lot of videos. If you guys ever go back and there's like old videos of mine that you like to watch, you guys might notice those start disappearing. It's just, there's a lot going on with YouTube now. But thanks for watching, guys. Catch you on the next video. I'm out. Peace.